Have you ever walked down just a normal, quiet city street? Maybe you're on your way to grab a coffee, and suddenly you feel this strange vibration in the ground beneath your feet.
Oh, yeah. Like a subtle rumble.
Exactly, just a faint rumble. It's that momentary kind of eerie feeling that the pavement itself is hiding a secret. Like it's trying to tell you that what you're walking on isn't, quite what it seems.
Right. It's a very specific sensation, like you've momentarily stepped on a glitch in the urban matrix, where the present day just doesn't completely cover up the past.
Yeah, and today we're taking you to one very specific neighborhood where that feeling isn't just a glitch. It is basically built into the concrete.
Literally built in.
Yeah, we are heading to Tokyo. Specifically, this neighborhood called Omori-machi in Oda Ward. We have gotten our hands on this absolutely fascinating source document. It's called a Universal Spiritual-Geospatial Historical Dossier.
Which I know sounds incredibly dense.
Right, it sounds like a textbook. But what it actually does is remap this one specific neighborhood, not just through time, but through these deep psychological and spiritual cycles.
It's a remarkable piece of analysis because it completely rejects the idea that a city's history is just, a straight timeline of progress.
A straight line from A to B.
Exactly. Instead, it treats Omori's history as a series of brutal deaths and total reincarnations.
Wow.
Yeah, the area doesn't just evolve. It is repeatedly obliterated and reborn. And each time it comes back, it suffers from this profound collective amnesia about what it used to be.
Which is wild. So if you are someone who hates surface-level tourist traps, and you really want to understand the hidden, messy DNA of a city, this deep dive is going to completely change how you look at urban landscapes.
You're definitely going to get a very different kind of map for your next trip to Tokyo.
For sure. But to understand this cycle of amnesia, we actually have to start with someone trying to dig up the past. So picture a train window in the year 1877.
Right. So in 1877, you have Edward S. Morse. He's an American zoologist, and he's writing the new Yokohama-Tokyo rail line.
Brand new technology at the time.
Exactly. And he's carrying this very Western Darwinian lens right into the middle of Japan's desperate push for modernization. So he's looking out the window as the train passes through Omori, and he spots a cross-section of Earth that had been cut away to lay the tracks.
And he notices something weird.
Yeah, he instantly recognizes it as an ancient shell mound. It's a settlement from the Jōmon-period, dating anywhere from 3,000 to 14,000 years ago.
So his scientific instincts just kick in. He gets permission, and he starts digging. And he pulls up pottery, tools, and crucially here, human bones.
Right, and this is where the cultural collision happens.
Yeah, because he examines these bones and finds very distinct cut and burn marks. And his immediate objective scientific conclusion is
Possible cannibalism.
possible cannibalism, which you can imagine how that went over with the Meiji government.
Oh, they absolutely hated it.
It's a total disaster for them. Okay, let's unpack this. It's like finding a dinosaur in your backyard, but immediately trying to pave over it because you're trying to sell the house to a really judgmental buyer.
That is exactly what it was like. Japan was in the middle of this intense, high-stakes effort to look civilized to Western powers.
Right, so they could renegotiate a bunch of unequal treaties.
Exactly. The absolute last thing they wanted was a prominent American scientist broadcasting to the world that their ancient ancestors might have, eaten each other.
The PR nightmare of the century.
It really was. The pushback was immediate. Nationalist scholars scrambled to explain the marks away, insisting they were just evidence of ritualistic cremation, not cannibalism.
But the friction here goes so much deeper than just political PR.
Oh, yeah, way deeper. In the Shinto tradition, a Mount Otsuka is not just an archaeological trash heap. It functions as a highly complex boundary space between the living and the dead. To dig up ancestral bones in the name of objective science, and then literally pack some of them in crates to ship off to a museum at Harvard.
Which he did.
Which he did. That was a massive ritual transgression.
It created spiritual pollution.
Exactly. It's a concept known as Keigar. It presented this incredible paradox. Like, this Western scientific act allowed Japan to physically see its prehistoric ancestors for the first time, but it could only do so by violating their sacred resting place.
That is so intense. And if you want to physically feel the weight of this contradiction today, there's a very specific spot you need to visit. It's the Omori Shell Mounds Park.
But you can't just go in the middle of the afternoon.
No, you have to go early. You stand right by the tiny mound of shells at, say, 6 a.m. The sensory experience is profound because right above you is the elevated track of the JR train line.
Right.
Every few minutes, a commuter train just roars by. It casts this fleeting shadow and sends a heavy, low-frequency vibration straight through the soles of your feet.
You literally feel the speed, the weight, and the heavy machinery of the industrial age physically pressing down on the absolute silence of prehistory.
It is surreal, just vibrating right through you.
Right.
But the irony here is that the railway paved over ancient history, while a few centuries prior, it was concrete paving over the ocean itself.
Yeah, because before Omori was defined by trains or industry, spanning the Edo period all the way up to 1963, it was the undisputed kingdom of nori.
Seaweed.
Seaweed.
For centuries, this entire area was defined by the shallow tidal flats of Tokyo Bay. You had these highly specialized families of fishermen farming seaweed.
And this wasn't just dropping nets in the water.
Not at all. It was a massive artisanal industry driven by incredibly deep, tacit knowledge passed down through generations. I mean, these families held fiercely guarded secrets about how to read the microcurrents.
The exact salinity of the water.
Yeah, and precisely how and where to place the bamboo poles to cultivate the absolute finest seaweed, which historically was destined for the shogun's table.
The level of specialization was immense. But starting in the 1930s and then accelerating wildly in the post-World War II economic boom, the drive for modernization just took over entirely. Right. Tokyo Bay was systematically filled in with concrete to create industrial zones. The water that remained became hopelessly polluted.
So sad.
It really is. By 1963, the environment was so drastically altered that the very last of the nori farmers were forced to shut down entirely. The actual coastline was pushed miles away from where it originally sat.
It was just erased, just gone. But the dossier makes a really compelling argument that this wasn't just a loss of jobs or, a shift in the local economy, right?
Not at all. It was much deeper. It was fundamentally tied to cosmology.
How so?
Well, in Shintoism, the tidal zone, that shifting space that is neither fully land nor fully sea, is considered a sacred boundary space. It's a transitional realm.
Yeah, I follow.
The nori fishermen operated entirely within this realm. They had an entire cosmological calendar aligned with the tides. Their daily labor was intertwined with praying to the sea gods for the harvest.
Oh, wow. So when developers came in and just poured millions of tons of concrete over the tidal flats.
It was an act of cosmological violence.
Cosmological violence.
Yes. It wasn't just paving over a farm. It was permanently sealing away the sea gods. It destroyed the sacred boundary and fundamentally altered the spiritual geography of the region.
Which brings us to one of the most subtly heartbreaking places you can visit in Tokyo today. You can go to the Omori-Nori Museum, where the dossier notes you can actually still smell this faint, ghostly scent of dried seaweed hanging in the air.
It's haunting.
Yeah, it really is. But the real gut punch is right outside.
The Omori Furusato no Hamabe Park.
Right. It features a beach. But it's an artificial beach, built entirely on reclaimed, filled-in land. I mean, they brought in artificial sand and created a water channel that doesn't even directly connect to the real bay anymore.
It is beautifully tragic. The dossier actually frames this artificial beach as a kind of collective unconscious apology by the community.
Like, they didn't even realize they were apologizing.
Exactly. It's a structural manifestation of grief for destroying the real ocean. You stand there looking at a pristine simulation of the very thing they violently paved over.
It's heavy. You're standing on a fake beach trying to remember a lost ocean. But speaking of heavy, this idea of boundary spaces, like the tidal flats, plays out in a much darker way if we look slightly south.
Yeah, historically parallel to those seaweed farmers.
Right. We move into the era of the dark gatekeeper.
We are looking at the Edo period now, specifically from 1651 to 1871, and the Suzugamori Execution Grounds.
Right.
Geographically, this site was positioned right on the Tokaido Road, which was the main highway of the era. Crucially, it was the absolute final checkpoint before you entered the shogun's capital of Edo.
It was pure political theater. I mean, if you were a traveler, a merchant, or a rival lord arriving at the capital, you had to walk past this gruesome display.
You couldn't avoid it.
Right. Criminals and political rebels, like Marabashi Chuya in 1651, who famously tried to overthrow the shogunate, they were crucified, burned at the stake, or beheaded right there for everyone to see.
The shogunate was sending a very clear, very visceral visual message. Step out of line in our city, and this is what happens to you.
But here we encounter another massive structural contradiction. In the blended Shinto-Buddhist belief system of the time, executing people so brutally, especially political prisoners who felt they were unjustly killed, was incredibly dangerous.
Yes, it risked creating onryo.
Vengeful spirits. Okay, wait, let me get the logic straight here. The shogunate desperately needed to look terrifying and ruthless to maintain political control over a massive population.
Right.
But they were simultaneously terrified that the ghosts of the people they were killing would come back for revenge.
Precisely. They needed the violence to be highly visible to the living, but they knew that unpacified onryo were believed to cause plagues, natural disasters, and, real political instability.
Wow.
Yeah, the spiritual pollution, the kigar, from so much violent death, couldn't just be ignored.
So how do they manage the logistics of that? I mean, you can't just execute people every week and hope the ghosts don't notice.
You build spiritual infrastructure.
Wait, spiritual infrastructure? What does that even mean?
Well, right next to the execution ground, the shogunate established Senenji Temple. Its primary state-sponsored function was to act essentially as a spiritual scrubber.
A spiritual scrubber? That's fascinating.
Yeah. The monks constantly performed Buddhist rites to pacify the dead. Suzugamori was deliberately placed on the border of the city as a pollution buffer zone. The spiritual taint was absorbed at the city limits, processed by the temple, so it wouldn't infect the capital itself.
That is wild. The government zoning the city for spiritual pollution management?
Exactly what it was.
And what's crazy is that you can still go to this exact spot. The Suzugamori Execution Ground ruins are still there today. It's just this tiny 200 square meter patch of land sitting right next to Route 15.
Just hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and the dossier describes this incredibly surreal contrast for anyone walking by. The original stone base where the crucifixions happened is still there. It's weathered, covered in moss.
And you can stand right next to it, right next to this monument of unspeakable targeted historical violence. Here, modern traffic roaring by on the highway and literally smell morning miso soup drifting over from the completely normal residential houses built right up against the fence.
The macabre completely swallowed by the everyday.
Exactly. But that targeted managed violence of the Edo period eventually gives way to a completely different scale of destruction. We move forward to World War II, where the violence isn't targeted at rebels on the edge of town.
No, it's indiscriminate, mechanized destruction falling from the sky.
Right.
And here, the dossier shifts its analytical framework. It deliberately uses a secular trauma geography approach, avoiding religious or poetic metaphors to ensure we don't romanticize the very real, visceral suffering of civilians.
Which is important to note.
Right. By the mid-20th century, Oda Ward had become a massive hub of what they call machikoba, small, decentralized factories.
And the industrial landscape was entirely interwoven with the residential one. We're talking about thousands of tiny workshops making aircraft parts and military equipment, but they were sitting right next to, or even inside, wooden family homes.
There was zero separation between the war machine and the living room,
which made the entire neighborhood a primary military target. In 1945, particularly during the horrific firebombings by B-29s on the night of March 9th and 10th, the area was turned to ash.
It was. And the dossier uses a chilling term to describe what happened that night. Spatial zeroing.
Spatial zeroing. Unpack that for us, because that sounds like more than just buildings burning down.
It is. So when a city is damaged in war, it usually rebuilds organically along the old lines, right?
The roads stay the same.
Exactly. The streets remain, the property lines remain. Spatial zeroing means the complete and total erasure of the spatial memory of a community in a matter of hours. The landmarks, the alleys, the workshops, the homes, all of it vanished.
Just wiped clean.
Yes. When the survivors eventually rebuilt, they weren't repairing a damaged neighborhood. They were forced to build an entirely new spatial reality on top of a blank slate of ash.
To really grasp the aftermath of that, you can visit Heiwen Omori Park, which translates to Peace Forest Park. It's built on reclaimed land in the area, and there's a modest war memorial there. But what's so striking about it is that this memorial to absolute devastation is entirely surrounded by tennis courts, playgrounds, and daily leisure activities.
This contrast brings up a critical psychological concept from the dossier called productive amnesia.
Okay, productive amnesia.
Yeah. How does a community process the trauma of spatial zeroing when they have absolutely nothing left?
Wait, is productive amnesia just an academic way of saying people were too busy trying not to starve to worry about building giant monuments? Or is there an actual psychological mechanism at play here?
It's an active coping mechanism. They didn't build massive, solemn monuments that demanded constant daily mourning because that would be psychologically paralyzing.
Right, you can't live like that every day.
Exactly. Instead, they processed the trauma by burying themselves in post-war labor and routine. They let the trauma be absorbed and swallowed by the everyday rhythms of life, like the thwack of a tennis ball over the ashes.
Wow.
They actively worked to forget, because forgetting was the only way to function.
And boy, did they work. Which brings us to the most recent historical cycle. From the literal ashes of 1945, Omori was reborn yet again, this time as a precision manufacturing empire.
The precision phoenix.
Yeah. By the 1980s, during Japan's massive economic boom, this area had around 9,000 hyper-specialized tiny factories.
And we really need to emphasize the scale here. These weren't massive assembly lines with hundreds of workers.
Right.
We're talking shops with 2 or maybe 3 people. The supply chain was the neighborhood itself.
Right, like one shop would do the rough cut of a metal part, carry it in a box down the street to a second shop for heat treatment, and then walk it over to a third for microscopic polishing.
The level of precision was so astounding that there is a persistent urban legend that these tiny, unglamorous neighborhood shops were supplying parts directly to NASA.
It's an amazing underdog story. But like every single cycle in Omori, it is currently facing extinction. Today, those 9,000 factories have plummeted to maybe 3,000 or 4,000.
The decline was multifaceted. It started with the 1985 Plaza Accord, which made Japanese exports very expensive.
Right.
And then the economic bubble burst in the 90s. But the real killer, the fatal blow, is demographic. The master artisans are aging and retiring, and they have no successors to take over the machines.
But the dossier argues this is more than just a sad economic data point about manufacturing leaving a city. It brings us back to Shintoism, right?
Yes, specifically to the concept of mono-no-reishi, the spirit in things. There is a deep, quasi-religious ethos in traditional Japanese craftsmanship.
How does that look in practice?
Well, artisans often place amulets on their machines. They treat them with a reverence that borders on the spiritual. The knowledge these masters possess is tacit.
Like the seaweed farmers.
Exactly like the seaweed farmers. It's not written down in a manual, and you can't program it into an AI. It lives in their muscle memory, their ears listening to the pitch of a drill, their fingertips feeling a micron of variance in a metal joint.
So when a master retires and the family decides to close up shop and sell the land, what actually happens to that knowledge?
It vanishes instantly. When the factory closes, the tacit knowledge dies, and the spirit in the machine dissipates. The dossier calls this a landscape-scale spiritual extinction.
Landscape-scale spiritual extinction. That's powerful.
It isn't just a business closing. It is the invisible death of an entire ecosystem of localized knowledge and spirit.
If you want to witness this before it's completely gone, you don't even need to go to a museum. You just walk down the residential streets surrounding the Keikyu Omori-machi station.
Yay.
You'll be walking past totally normal 2-story wooden houses. You'll see laundry hanging on the balcony on the second floor. But on the first floor, the aluminum door is rolled up, and it's a fully functioning precision metal factory inside someone's house.
It's incredible to see.
It is. And the most powerful marker of this isn't visual. It's olfactory. You can smell it.
Yes, the smell.
The sweet, slightly acidic scent of cutting oil and metal shading spilling out onto the sidewalk. It is the defining scent of the neighborhood, and it is slowly fading away day by day.
Which perfectly encapsulates the core thesis of this entire dossier. We've looked at prehistoric shells, seaweed farms, execution grounds, firebombs, and tiny factories. And what connects all of them is a concept the researchers call Kairiku Tensei Shukugen, or Sealand Transmigration Syndrome.
Sealand Transmigration Syndrome. So Omori's history is a repetitive, brutal cycle of total death and total reincarnation.
Yes.
And the crucial insight here is that every single time Omori is reborn, it completely forgets its past life.
Absolutely. When the railway was built in the Meiji era, it aggressively suppressed the Jōmon history. When the concrete was poured for modernization, it erased the cosmological boundary of the ocean. When the bombs fell, they completely erased the Edo and pre-war spatial memory. Omori today is an inland, heavily urbanized neighborhood that has entirely forgotten that it used to be the ocean.
But the history is still there, vibrating under the surface, hiding in plain sight.
Exactly.
It's the JR crane tracks, literally pressing down on the prehistoric shells.
Yeah.
It's the slightly curved residential roads that, if you look closely, actually perfectly map the old coastline.
It's the fake beach unconsciously mourning the real ocean, the tennis match echoing over the ashes of the firebombing, the sweet smell of cutting oil wafting out of a living room.
It is a landscape fundamentally defined by profound amnesia, but it is constantly punctuated by these involuntary memory leaks.
That's a great way to put it. Memory leaks.
So we want to leave you with one final, slightly unsettling thought to mull over. The dossier notes that right now, as we speak, Omori is in the middle of its next extinction phase.
Yeah, those tiny, hyper-specialized factories with the cutting oil. The masters are retiring, the businesses are closing, and the land is being sold off because it's too valuable. They are currently being paved over to build sleek, modern apartment buildings.
As this new reincarnation takes hold, we have to ask the inevitable question. What new amnesia is settling in right now?
Decades from now, the people living in those pristine, quiet new apartments will go about their daily lives, drinking their coffee, staring at their phones. But what will they be standing on top of without ever realizing it?
It makes you wonder about your own city, doesn't it? The next time you're walking down a normal, quiet street in your own neighborhood and you feel that strange, faint vibration in the pavement, just take a second, look down. What past lives are buried beneath your feet, just waiting to be remembered?
It's always deeper than concrete.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Keep questioning the ground you walk on.